How's it going? How's it going, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. It's a very special edition of the Dad Podcast. Bud's back at school. He wishes he was here for this one because one thing about the way Rhode Island works in social media, man, when COVID was going on, we all needed a fresh air. We needed something to lighten us up. And he would love when the press conferences were on and when he would see Dr. McDonald going on and he was making us smile, making us laugh. And that was like the one bright spot of the whole thing. And COVID was a tough time, and 2021 was a tough time for everybody. But I have to say, I had on Mr. Smiley on last week, and what we had to say was when those press conferences came on, my MVP and the guy that made it all almost go together, made us just flow with the laughter and bringing joy to a time when we needed a little bit of laughter. But he did it in a way that was so educational, but still we learned, we laughed, and we almost for a second forgot about what serious matter the conversation was. And people like that is what we needed at the time. And sometimes people like that, they do it so effortlessly and they work so hard that sometimes we got to bring them on to say thank you. Because, like I say, not all superheroes wear capes. And this man right here did so much for us because my son's 9 years old and he actually learned about what was going on with COVID, whether it be Dr. McDonald's props or just his kind words that he would give or his personal stories. That's why I just want to bring them on. So we appreciate what you did, especially in the tough times. Thank you and I salute you. So that's for all those words. Many more want to say welcome.
Wow. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Dan. I mean, it's humbling to hear you say such kind words. It really is. And it's, the whole year of 2020 was a bit of a ride for me, quite frankly. I learned a lot and I've met a lot of people, and it's really been a privilege to be part of the response from the Department of Health. But I have to tell you that when you tell me your 9-year-old actually learned about COVID from me, that kind of makes my day. I just got to tell you that it really warms my heart a little bit because, part of what I really try to do is explain things. Well, I've been a pediatrician for over 30 years.
Mhm.
And one of the things I learned a long time ago is that if I can explain what's going to happen to a child and they can understand why they need to take a medicine, they're more likely to take a medicine or more likely to do some other things I suggest. And I think one of the things I just have learned in my career is if you can't explain it to a child, do you really understand it yourself?
Gotcha.
Because if you really do find yourself with the ability to explain it to a child, then you probably do understand it well enough. And that's really what I've been trying to do during the whole pandemic so far, is explain it so that little ones can understand.
You kind of touched on it now, but I always like to say, last year, for me, I think the toughest part of me was the year started off when Kobe Bryant passed away.
Yeah.
And that was just a bad part to start the year. But if you had to say 3 words to describe 2020, what would they be?
Yeah, 2020 was a surprise. That's one word. 2020 was uncertain. That was the other word. And 2020 was amazing.
Oh,
It's the third word I say. And I guess is amazing might be a little bit surprising,
yeah.
but it was amazing where the science and technology brought us with the vaccine. It's amazing to me how I saw people act during the pandemic, mainly in very good ways, but in some ways, not so good. You know what I mean? It was like it was amazing to me. And I learned a lot about how humans behave a little bit. It was just also amazing to me to see how state government can work well. In other words, one of the things that amazed me was how I got to know a lot of people in all the other state agencies and how well they actually worked together. And it was interesting to me, like one of the things that amazed me was how little ego was involved. It was very much like, how do we focus on the mission? We want to save as many Rhode Islanders as possible, keep as many people out of the hospital. How do we go ahead and do that? And I really wasn't dealing with people's egos. It was really just people grabbed onto a mission. So I think those are the words: surprising, uncertain, and amazing.
Hmm. Now, for you, was it tough? Because I know even with my 9-year-old, like he would hear one thing, whether it be on a press conference or at school, and he would see other people doing different things. So he went to school full time this year, this past fall, going through. He's in school now, but the neighborhood kids, they're all doing virtual. So you would get the questions on why this person get to do this or why this. Did you get that to be hard? You had to answer questions about from maybe your personal family or friends, like why does this group do it? Why is it not this one?
And Dan, I think you're hitting on one of the really key points of the pandemic response in the United States. So my dad's 90 years old
Okay.
and he walks and talks and he does stuff. He's great. He's doing awesome. He's a healthy guy, but he's still confused about the pandemic, and it's not for want of explaining it. I think what happened to a lot of people in the United States is when you hear different points of view, you can't always put them together and have it make sense. And I think one of the things that I really saw in 2020 was people didn't know who to trust. And when I really think about the pandemic in Rhode Island, what I saw was, we had more trust than other parts of the country. When you look at the United States response, I think what you see in the United States is we have a trust problem. And what I mean by saying we have a trust problem is people look at someone on TV or in the radio, and they quite frankly don't trust the person because they don't know if what they're saying is one true, if they have a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
And I think therein lies part of the problem with our national response. I mean, the United States, we had an interesting response to the pandemic. I can't say that we did well, though. In other words, we did great that we got a vaccine out. We have great vaccine, but it's like a lot more people died in this country than needed to. And it was a disproportionate response to people. And it really concerns me because there was just too many mixed messages, mostly in 2020, less so in 2021. I think we've gotten a lot more clarity now. When the federal government's more focused on message and really just telling people what's going on, I think that's just been a better place for us.
I know, speaking on the larger scale, like especially with Dr. Fauci, it just seemed like you either loved him or you hate him. You believed everything he said or you didn't believe anything. Now, for you personally, was that tough? Like when you going on the press conferences and saying something and, walking your neighborhood or going out, and someone be like, oh, why is it this way? Or why is it that way? Because you were the face of a lot of, not, I don't want to say you made the decisions, but it looked like you were the one making the decision, or you were Dr. Can't even name right now, Dr. Alexandra. So was that tough for you guys making those press conferences, making those announcements, and then being out in public?
Yeah, I'll tell you, for me, like, I didn't have talking points at the press conference. I just spoke from what was on my heart and what I knew to say. In other words, I knew what I was going to say and answered questions as honestly as I could.
Mhm.
And for me, I just answered every question I got honestly. And when I went up to tell a story, I knew what I was going to say ahead of time. It's kind of interesting. The governor didn't always know what I was going to say. And it wasn't that she didn't necessarily want to, but she just, trusted her staff knew what I was going to say. But it was one of those things where I think she just trusted what I was going to say was going to be okay. And it was one of those things where I really respected that because she let me as a public health physician be a public health physician and just tell people the truth. And, it's funny, when I would walk in my neighborhood, people would ask me questions, but I didn't really get a lot of, pushback. People were just very, one, thankful I was doing what I was doing, and two, really, trusted what I had to say. And I think part of it was just telling people the truth. And I think one of the things that I really tried to do during the pandemic was, one, tell you what we know. And then if we didn't know something, how we were going to find out. And then we'll get back to you on that. And I think that's one of those things. And I think the other thing I tried to do is just explain things as clearly as I could understand it. And really, one of the things I had to explain to everybody was we are all in this together. And I think this is a message we still struggle with in the United States is we are very much all in this together.
Mhm.
And, Dan, throughout the whole pandemic, that's one thing I've seen in this country. Like I remember I said earlier, we have a trust problem, but when you have a trust problem, it's really hard to bring people into a common mission and do something together because not everybody unifies when there's not trust. And I think this is one of the things I really see in the vaccine rollout in the United States right now is you still see people who are lacking vaccine confidence because they're just not, quite frankly, sure who to trust. And right now, I spend a lot of my time trying to explain to people, answer questions, build trust, and see what happens. And that's all I can do at this point, and let people decide what's right for them, because people want control
Mm.
and they deserve control. And right now, much of the pandemic's in everyone's control.
And I know that one thing that made you, I think, even more relatable was when you would tell stories, you would relate them to your own life, especially when you were telling a story about, I think it was your son's prom and not being able to go. So it
Yeah.
was like you actually were relating to your life, where a lot of times people in your spot, they'll just speak in general. Now, were your kids are all embarrassed, or were they shocked at some of the stories you were telling?
My kids don't mind at all. They're used to me telling stories about them. Like Sarah did, have an odd senior year of high school. It's kind of funny. I'll tell you the end of that story, in case you're curious, is, you know, she had a graduation outside. They didn't have the prom, but the big disappointment for Sarah was they were doing the play Hello Dolly, and they were excited about doing Hello Dolly, and she had been dreamed of doing Hello Dolly, and it was her favorite play. In fact, she had saw it at PPAC right before the pandemic got in Rhode Island and just loved it. And so she got the role of Dolly. I mean, just couldn't have asked for more, and every little girl has dreams. That was hers. and she couldn't have that dream fulfilled. What's kind of interesting is she just came back from college last night. So her first year of college ended last night. But what's been going on at her old high school is they actually are doing Hello Dolly again
Oh,
this year. They're doing it in June. And what's kind of interesting is she kept in touch with her drama teacher. I really wasn't aware of this until recently. And they're actually having her perform as Dolly,
oh wow.
in June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it's kind of a fun little story because what I saw, and kind of the point I made when I brought this out last year was, Sarah had to demonstrate a lot of resilience. You have to push through when there's tough times. You have to accept the disappointment and push through. That's called resilience. And there was no expectation she'd ever get to have this dream fulfilled again. But it's kind of interesting because of the kindness of others,
Mhm.
her drama teacher and other people at her old school, they found a way to make it possible for her to do that. And I think that just underscores one of the power of the pandemic in Rhode Island. These aren't random acts of kindness. These are purposeful acts of kindness. And purposeful acts of kindness go an awful long way to build trust with people, build relationship, and quite frankly, build community. And that's what really public health is designed to do, is build community. That's really the message of public health. And it's part of what drew me to public health, was just getting people in community. Because when you're in community together, it's a really good place.
Yeah, I know like resilience is one of like, because like I mentioned off air, I coach high school football, and resilience is one of the big words that we talked about because when we lost our fall season, a lot of our seniors were devastated. So we ended up getting a spring season, but because of close contact and other issues, we only got 3 of the 5 games in. So it was tough, but at least we got to play some football, and was glad with that. But it was just tough adjusting on the fly, and that's what it was all about, was being resilient and being able to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have learned flexibility in 2020. And I think this is one of those things is, if we can look at 2020 and say, what can we pull from this? It's positive. If we can pull resilience, if we can pull flexibility, and if we can pull out of it, I need to trust science and keep objective and subjective. I think those are positive to pull out of it. And I think one of the things we can push aside to maybe not carry through is, one of the things that really surprised me about the pandemic was how political it got, because that doesn't make sense to me. Like, public health is not political health, but it became political health at a national level, which just quite frankly is weird to me and never needed to be that way. And it makes me wonder why that happened. And I still don't understand some of the political ramifications, even with the vaccine rollout. We're still trying to understand that at a national level. Because really what it should come down to people is like, everybody should be interested in protecting their own personal health, and they should be interested in protecting the personal health of others around them. But when there's this mistrust of science, it really makes me worried, because if we don't trust our science, then I'm wondering what we're trusting at that point.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, how do you arrive at your conclusions? Not that science is the be all end all, because science doesn't have an answer for everything, but it does have an answer for a lot of things. And that's one of the things that I think we in public health have to figure out is, how do we better build relationship with people, better build trust, and better build community, and help people trust the public health science and the medical science so they can make the best healthcare decisions for themselves.
Yeah, one thing I was seeing online, which I was kind of like shocked about, was when people would talk about, oh, they got their vaccine, and they would like post the cards online. A couple of times I was seeing comments, they were like, oh, you're being a guinea pig, or you're following along, and I'm like, they're doing what's best for them and what they felt was best for them. But there was so much negative, and then when the Johnson and Johnson incident happened, or with the cases there, that had to make it much harder to, encourage people to get the vaccine when everything was going on with Johnson and Johnson. How much difficult did that make it?
Yeah, I think you're really hitting on a key point, and that is fear. Like, one of the things about people responding on social media in particular is there isn't that threshold of you would have talking to someone face to face, or even eyeball to eyeball over a screen. So our barriers are less, and that's not always the best for everybody. And so what you see is people making accusations, because no one was a guinea pig. They had clinical trials, our vaccines were researched like every other vaccine was. It was just prioritized, that's all. And then when the Johnson and Johnson, you know, problem was discovered, one of the things that I think people missed with that was, this is how a safety monitoring system works. In other words, we had a very elaborate monitoring system for each one of these vaccines. On day 42 of its rollout, we discovered a safety signal, a strong safety signal. And with that safety signal, it was temporarily stopped, fully studied, treatment devised, information given to patients, information given to healthcare providers,
Mhm.
and then after a thoughtful time is resumed. And I think that's how a safety system works.
Yeah.
To me, that looks like transparent government. And to me, that inspires trust. Now, have we seen less people take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? Yes, we have. And probably rightfully so, because quite frankly, a reasonable person is going to say, you know what? The Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine does not have this side effect, but does have 2 doses.
Mhm.
I'm going to get 2 doses instead of 1. And a reasonable person can make that determination. Another reasonable person might say, you know what? I really only want to get 1 dose. So I'm going to take this very, very small risk. And that's another reasonable person. I think what's really great about where we are in Rhode Island right now is people have the freedom to choose what makes sense for them. And to me, that sounds like autonomy and control. And I think this is what people really, really want is give me control back over the pandemic. Let me make my own personal health decisions. People want that.
And one thing I think is cool, my mother-in-law, we were just talking about the health cards because I have my card up, and I was saying how I need to get it laminated like at Staples because they do it for free. Anyone who's watching and want to do that. But then she was saying that she heard that if you believe it was you or another expert say not to yet because there may be another shot added. Don't get them laminated yet. And so it's back and forth. So for her and everybody else, do you get the card laminated or are we waiting?
It's up to you. I'll say this, if you want to get it laminated, get it laminated. I just took a photograph of mine. Like I have an iPhone. I
Mhm.
just took a digital image. And part of why I like the digital image is I can show it if someone were to ask for it. But the more important thing is if I ever lose the card, I know what it is. I will say this, if you get it laminated and there is going to be another shot someday,
Mhm.
you can just get a fresh card. So if you laminated it, fear not, nothing to worry about. And if you want to laminate it, have a good time.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we're going to have another shot. My sense is if we do have one, it's going to be because there was a new variant of concern and we needed to do that. And it's not going to be, I don't believe, an annual flu vaccine
Okay.
because that changes every year. The coronavirus that we're worried about, the SARS-CoV-2, mutates, but it doesn't seem to mutate or change that quickly. And since it doesn't change that quickly, I don't think we're going to see a reason to do a booster every single year. We have to wait and see. But, people are looking at that. The research is ongoing, and that encourages me. I mean, I'm really excited that people are doing research on this because this is what I like. I like science and I like to understand.
Now, before, really quick, I know you mentioned science a couple of times. Now, growing up, was that always something you just loved, or was it something that you got into school and you figured out you loved it, or was that something just came natural for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up in a pharmacy. Like my grandfather in 1931 started a pharmacy in upstate New York. And when he passed away, my mom took it over. And my mom got older, my brother took it over. So I grew up in a pharmacy. So I was, at a young age, doing what people do in pharmacies, sweeping floors, stocking shelves,
Mhm.
occasionally helping the pharmacy as I got older, helping the pharmacist. But like, I think growing up in a pharmacy helped me see how interesting medicine was. And I liked learning about my human body. In other words, I liked learning how the human body worked. I was intrigued by that. And since I was intrigued about how humans got sick and how humans got better, I was interested in science. And that's really what drove my interest in that. And it's funny though, my first major in college wasn't biology. My first major in college was photography.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was just sort of an odd little thing. I went and did photography in Rochester for a year and a half. And part of that was just maybe being a young high school student who didn't really know what he wanted to do in life, which I think a lot of people can relate to, quite frankly,
Yeah.
because 17 and 18, I don't know how at that age you really say, here's what I'm going to do for the next 45 years. I sure didn't know, and it's kind of funny. As much as I liked photography as a kid, I'm glad I didn't do it as a career because everyone's a photographer right now.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I went into medicine because, that's what I wanted to do. And it's one of those things where I think for me at 18, I just didn't have the maturity or maybe even the courage to make that commitment to go into medicine and go to college because people were talking me out of it. Like at 18, what I heard people say to me was, not everybody gets in medical school. You have a degree. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to be able to get a job? And I was like, all right, I'm getting discouraged. And I think, at one point, what I had to do was overcome people who were discouraging me and just say, you know what? Why don't I just try my best, see what I can do? And if I fail, I fail, but at least I will have tried. Because one of the things I thought was it's easier to live with the regret of trying your best and failing than with the regret of wondering what could have been. And I was really glad I tried my best and actually got into medical school and achieved my dreams. And I think that's one of those things where for me, that was based on believing more in what I could do. And really, quite frankly, just it was really easy and learn together. So that was a pretty good thing to find in college. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I know you speak on growing up in upstate New York and going to school there. Now, was that mean growing up you were a Yankee fan?
No, I was a Met fan and still
Oh,
am a
okay.
Met fan. And by the way, Dan, being a Met fan is hard. It's about loyalty and perseverance. It is not about winning. That much is certain. You know what I mean? So being a Met fan requires a lot of commitment. I'm telling you, more than I ever thought I would need to. But yeah,
I
it's hard being a Met fan.
got a bunch of Mets fans. Got a bunch of Mets fans. I grew up a Yankee fan, so I got a lot of Mets fans. And it's a good docu series coming out about the '85 Mets Red Sox series.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
so,
here's one of the odd things about 2021. Right now, the Mets and the Red Sox are both in first place. I don't know who had that on their 2021 bingo card, but that surprised me so far this year.
yeah, definitely. So we're almost gonna wrap up. We like to end on a bright note. Well, with you, everything's a bright note, and that's what I appreciate about you. I want to have you on and thank you for it because 2020 we're going through some tough times, and we'd sit down and hear like devastating numbers and gloomy numbers, and then when you would come on, you would fill in. It just seemed like you always brought a fresh air and brought a smile to everybody. Even like Mr. Smiley was saying, he was trying not to laugh or smile too much under the mask, but we couldn't hold back our smile. We thank you and appreciate it. Especially you helped my son that's 9 years old, who's not he hates science class at school, but he was understanding what you were doing. Maybe if more teachers just made it more relatable and more fun than what you did, maybe more kids would start to like science again. But before we go, we're gonna ask you a couple rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your head.
Sure.
The first one is inspired by Fortnite. My son's a huge Fortnite guy. So if you jump out of an airplane, you gotta survive on a desert island. You and any 5 people, who are you taking?
I'm taking the 4 people in my family. That much is certain. And
Mhm.
then I'm probably going to take the dog because you know what? I'm going to miss Rosebud. So we'll take Rosebud. So the 4 people in my family and Rosebud.
Nice. And then when you're all done with that, you get to have any meal you want from anywhere in the world. What are you having?
I'm going to the Cheesecake Factory, my friend.
Oh, that okay.
I'm going to the Cheesecake Factory. I'll pick one of those cheesecakes. It's not good for me, but it's a desert island and the world's coming to a close here. I'm going to live right. That's what I'm doing. Finding myself to score some decent cheesecake.
And then afterwards, you get to go to a dream concert. Any 3 artists, dead or alive. Who's performing?
I'd like to see Chicago. I really enjoy them. And also enjoy Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I would like that as much. And then I think for the third one, why not the Eagles? Listen to the Desperado out there live. I'd enjoy that.
Nice, nice. And I know like right now restrictions are starting to loosen up and people are starting to get back out there. If you had to say any 3 places you can go to just get back and almost a little bit more normalcy, your three favorite vacation spots, what would they be?
So I'd go to the beach. So I think that's one place that's extremely safe. I think if you're going to go to a theme park like Disney World, make sure that everybody's wearing masks and things like that. But I think that's also a pretty safe place to go. Protocols look pretty good. By the way, another fun place to vacation, and this is something that more of us might need, I need it, is just hiking in the woods. Grab a mountain and see how far you can get in it. Because I think although 2020 was a year of isolation, one of the things that I think really restores a lot of our souls, mine included, is getting back in touch with nature. And there's something about just hiking a New Hampshire mountain that to me can just make all your problems melt away.
Nice. And again, having a 9-year-old who likes science, thanks to you, is a breath of fresh air. We appreciate that. So for that 9-year-old that's sitting there looking he's looking out at the summertime and he's thinking, I wonder if I can get out and play baseball. I wonder if I can get out there and just have a fun summer again. I miss Six Flags. I miss the beaches. What do you tell that 9-year-old to give him a little bit of encouragement that the summer's time's coming? It'll be a little better one than last year.
Definitely get out and play baseball. And please do go to Six Flags and please do visit our beaches. At 9, I want you to go outside and play. And, I think that's one of those really, really important messages for 2021 is go outside and play because outside is a safe place to be. So if I can get people outside, 1, they're not going to get COVID out there. 2, they're going to get a lot of exercise. And 3, they're going to feel a whole lot better. Maybe we can work off some of that weight we all gained in 2020, by the way, too. Not that 9-year-olds did, but I will tell you, Dan, I'm a pediatrician when I'm not doing this. Most of the kids I'm seeing during the year of quarantine, they gained weight because they just were home doing school and there's just access to food. So, getting outside and getting active again, it's going to help us all feel better.
And I know a lot of people are one last one. A lot of people are like reading stuff online, and a lot of times it's just the first thing that pops up on Facebook, Instagram, wherever it may be. And it's not always the best news. I mean, people love TMZ and the gossip columns. Where's the best place to get actual factual information that will actually help them and not just be more gossip?
Yeah, we try to keep the Department of Health web pages up to date. We really do try to keep everything there you need. If you go to health.ri.gov, start clicking our links. I believe in all of our links. I know what we're putting up there. We keep it. What I think is important about our website is we put up what's fresh and we take down what's stale. And I think that's important because as information changes, we don't want to have anybody confused about things. I worry about social media. You know, Dan, the way I use social media is I update my friends about my wife and my kids and other fun places I visit. I don't ever really get into more than that on social media. To me, it's just a way to connect with older friends. And I think sometimes when we get into political or other sources of news on it, it's very suspect and it's not edited like it is through major media outlets. And I think that's why people just need to be a little bit more circumspect about, hey, what am I looking at here? Is it true? Is it believable? And do they have a hidden agenda? Because on Facebook and other forms of social media, a lot of people have agendas, and that's something we have to be careful about.
So when's the next time we can find you on the press conference?
You know, I'm really not doing the press conference as much. I think you're going to see the cadence of that decrease quite a bit
Yeah.
over time. I think what you're going to see is that, I mean, more what I'm doing now is, you know, TV throughout the week as best needed and the radio when asked. And really that's kind of where I take my moments there. I mean, Channel 12 has been nice to me, putting me on the 4 o'clock news every Thursday, and I've really appreciated that. And Channel 10's been great about giving me some weekly time as well. So, you know, that's kind of where you can find me these days. Otherwise, you can find me in North Kingstown. Sometimes I'm shopping. If you see me, please say hi.
Rhode Island is I'm out in Providence, so saying North Kingstown, that's such a far ride. We tough
Oh
to
yeah,
get.
yeah, that's right. It is. Oh well, then maybe you'll see me in Lincoln Woods though. Like I do like to go walking in Lincoln Woods. Sometimes I even bring Daisy out there to go for a walk. Daisy's our other dog, but Daisy's our younger dog who needs to walk quite a few times, whereas Rosebud's our older dog who she likes to stay at home and kind of rest. She's around here somewhere resting right now.
And then finally, before we go, just for one last food of thought, one last positive note, what do you leave Rhode Island with?
I'm sorry. What was that again, please?
Oh, the one last positive note you leave Rhode Island going forward in 2021.
Oh, we got a lot to look forward to in Rhode Island. Like, I think we're going to have a great summer. By the way, you know, I think it's possible to eliminate this disease over the summer in Rhode Island. Now, eliminate disease doesn't mean 0 cases, but it does mean so few cases that we're having the life we want to have. And I think that's possible if enough people get the vaccine. So, you know, to some extent, if there's one thing I can leave you with is if you're just not having the confidence about your vaccine, just talk to your doctor about it and ask the questions you need to ask. And it should be a safe place to ask the questions because if we can just get more people to get the vaccine, we're going to be in a better place.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for coming on, and thanks for all you do. And right now it's been a scary time, but at least for a little bit, we're getting back out there. We're out there playing again. We're out there running around, walking, and it's almost like Red Sox are in first place, and the baseball is going, and football is right around the corner, and pretty soon Tom Brady will be coming back into Gillette, and it just seemed like everyone forgot for a second.
Well, thank you for all your kind words, Dan. It's humbling to hear you say such kind words about me because it's been an isolating pandemic for me as well. So it's nice to connect to people. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This was a ton of fun.
Definitely. Thank you. Can't wait to post it. Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.